Greetings, greetings of peace and love. Welcome to Miracles with a Twist Conversations. I'm Reverend Lori Cardona. I'm here with Reverend Lisa Benton. And we would like to dig deep and unpack issues related to A Course in Miracles, specifically related to our most recent live stream. So every Thursday at 7 p.m., we have a live stream that goes live on Facebook. And it's called Miracles with a Twist. It could be anything from the text of A Course in Miracles, the workbook, the teacher's manual, or even some of the supplements and the clarification of terms. And what we find is that we want to take a closer look. And so we do that from an interfaith perspective, from an everyday spirituality perspective, and certainly from the perspective of folks on the mystic's path, our own divine connection, our own moments of revelation, and wanting to share that with others. And so we come together to do that with humility, with surrender to guidance, and open to whatever direction we need to go. So we begin today with a prayer, and we all take a nice deep breath together. And when we exhale, we bring our hands to our hearts and press in just a little bit so you feel your heartbeat. And as I feel my heartbeat, I realize that I'm having this human experience for a reason, so that I can find a way to eliminate, deconstruct, and detach from the dictates of the ego's voice, so that I can rise higher, pray harder, love steadily, forgive readily, as a steward of God's grace, as a voice for humanity, as an instrument of peace. And knowing there are days when I don't rise to that task. And so I begin anew, knowing that we are all, each one of us, beloved, and that when we make mistakes, they just need to be corrected so we can start fresh every day with 24 hours ahead of us, with eyes willing to see peace, with eyes willing to see brothers and sisters, even in the face of some difficult times that we see in the world. We pray for peace and justice to prevail. We pray for minds to change, for hearts to soften. And for this and for so much more, as we say yes to this sacred path, we give thanks. Amen.
Amen.
Blessed be. And so, Goddi Lisa, good to be with you, as always.
It's always a pleasure to be here, RevLo. I just love it.
I do too. Would you like to introduce today's theme?
I would. This week we talked about question 20 in the teacher's manual. Some really good questions. Anytime anybody just doesn't know where their thoughts are going, go to the manual, pick anything and read it. They're usually a page and a half. Beautiful stuff and very powerful. And the question was, what is the peace of God? Well, I think that for me, I think I know what the peace of God is. It's not my peace. It's not something that I've contrived that I think should happen in order for there to not be no peace. But there's so much more to it than that. And I think that that is the struggle that we have as mystics, as humans, that we know that things do not have to be the way they are. We do not have to have war in order to thrive. We do not have to have people starve in order to thrive. On the contrary, the only way that we can truly thrive in accordance with our nature, which is divine and perfect, is to tune into that divinity, tune into that perfection, and see things the best we can through the eyes of God, the divine, the Buddha mind, whatever clarity it takes to get out of the fracas and into a place of complete unification with our Creator. And I think, and I know for me, that often I think of peace as no war, no poverty, no heartbreak, no sadness. That is what peace is. Well, on this plane, on this earth, with our bodies, that absolutely is wonderful to have that peace that we see. Nobody fighting, nobody arguing, nobody judging. But peace goes beyond that. The peace of God, which in the Christian spirituality, we've heard it say the peace that surpasses all of our human understanding. I think that's an important part to remember, is that it's acknowledged as a peace which surpasses our understanding. So we have to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. So peace is not just the absence of war and ugly and judgment. Peace is our Creator, divinity, perfection in which we were created. And to wade through all the layers of pain that we see every day, and these past few days, again, between Thursday and today, we have seen such horrendous, inhuman, just horrible things done to other human beings, our brothers and sisters. And that, as Jesus said, that's what you do to the least of them, you do to me. And to the least of them is me. So what I do to anyone, what I think about anyone, it bounces off of them and sticks to me. And so it's so essential when I believe when people listen to us, to the mystics, from the mystic's perspective, and in this case we're talking about A Course in Miracles, that everyone realize no one is saying that despicable things don't happen, painful, hurtful things don't happen, that we don't hurt, that our friends don't hurt, that people that we don't even know hurt, that people live in poverty and abuse, all that. There is no way we are saying that isn't happening, and there's no way we're saying that we find it acceptable or that we don't want to think about it. The issue is we do want to think about it, but what thoughts do we want to put out? What prayers do we want to put out into the universe, into the ethers, so that this despicable, judgmental behavior can be seen from a divine perspective instead of from the battlefield, as we spoke about last week. We can look at it from how the brutality perspective, and how do we get this to stop? Do we fight? Do we what do we do? Do we protest? Do we peacefully protest? How do you peacefully protest something that you find inhumane? All of this, it takes time. It takes meditation. It takes prayer. It takes peace, because we cannot go out and open our mouths, open our thoughts to expand that which we find repugnant or just beyond repugnant. So I found that with this little page and a half, What is God's Peace? The book has a really good way of just putting it in a couple of words, but even then, it's got to be taken into the heart. We take it into the heart. We will never find peace if we don't start with the heart. So I'd like to just read from it's the question 20, and it's paragraph 6, and it starts with, what is the peace of God? It says, no more than this, the simple understanding that his will is wholly without opposite. God's will, love, unity, divinity, perfection, abundance, joy, happiness, peace, all of that. That's peace, is completely and totally the absence of anything that isn't beautiful, loving, and divine. In fact, the first time I read this, this chapter, or whatever you want to call it, the little page and a half, I came up with this little equation, and it's to try to just keep things in my head that I could just refer to. And it was, illusion is an insane look at God's creation. And we talk about illusion a lot in and insanity a lot in A Course in Miracles. And throwing the word insanity around can sound pretty offensive to some people. We're not throwing it around. We're saying it is not sane. We're not judging. We're just saying it is not sane. If we are looking at something that is causing us anything but peace in our hearts and our minds and with our brothers and sisters, it's an illusion, because God did not create it. So I just found that's my little equation. It's an insane look at God's creation. That's what illusion is. And what we are seeing, I'm going to step out a little bit here and say, what we are seeing, all this pain, is a very real, earthly, humanness in the body ego look at God's creation. And so our job is to find peace, whatever it takes, and prayer and meditation, nature, being with people of like minds. And I can't stress that enough, that people of like minds, I am not saying if you don't believe what I believe, then I don't want you to talk to me, because, you know, we'll never get anywhere. No. I mean people who want this experiential, loving perspective in their life from the time they open their eyes in the morning till the time they close them at night, to wake up and go, wow, I'm alive. Thank you, God. Here's my heart, Lord. A song that we begin every Miracles with a Twist class with. Here's my heart, Lord. And to really mean it, and to not get out of that bed until you feel it. And it makes a huge difference if you have a support group. It can be 3 people, it can be one special person, whatever, someone that you can be truthful with, who will hold you accountable and want you to want peace in everything that you see, to see God in everything you see. And so I think of many different spiritualities and organized religions and all that are massive. And I think of our A Course in Miracles, which has many facets, and anybody can look on Facebook and YouTube and you'll find all different kinds of perspectives. But you'll see that they're connected. People are usually in Facebook, and where you have chatter back and forth, you can find a lot of not exactly conflicting, but not of like mind either. And that's all okay. I'm just saying, I believe, and I know I need, and I believe that everyone needs a support group to bring them closer to who they, make them more aware of who they really are. I want everybody to see you, RevLo, the way I see you. I want everybody to see that when they see you. I want to be seen as what's in my heart, not I don't want junk coming out of my mouth before I've had a chance to work it out in my heart. But I want everyone to see love when they see me. And it takes the peace of God. And that is the only thing it takes, but that is everything that it takes. And it's not easy to get there. But it's an amazing journey when you allow yourself to see the different synchronicities and the people that come in your path, just smiling at you, someone holding the door for you, or you drop something, someone picks it up. It makes you just feel so better than cursing that you dropped something and now my day's ruined, you know. So God's peace should be, I believe, wholeheartedly our mission. God's peace, not my peace, not anybody else's peace, because it's perfect peace, perfect love, and we feel our connection with each other, and we can go out and say, no, this isn't okay. I can't stand for this, but I'm not going to add to the fray, and I'm going to find a way to make it clear that I don't stand for this. And I want to bring love into the environment. So I am so grateful for God's peace, and I love this chapter, and I read it a lot, and I will focus more because of it. And each time I read it, I focus more on looking for God's peace as opposed to trying to put out fires that are going on in my life. It's just, that's a heck of a struggle. We're putting out those fires all the time. I'd rather find that peace and come from that place.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Goddi Lisa. Can you repeat your equation?
Yes. My equation is illusion is the insane look at God's creation.
Yes. The insane look. And when we look at what's going on out there, and sometimes what's going on in here, or even in our own lives, sometimes when we do take that step away, we can say that is insanity. That is insanity. That is not God's will. God's will for us is perfect peace. And so why is that happening? Why do we see what we've seen this past week? And we don't want to go into too much detail, but we have had conversations about the different things that are going on in our country and in other countries, and looking at it and feeling the anguish of the people who are suffering, and wondering, what can we do? And how can we not just help, but how can we not get caught up in what we see from the world's perspective as abuse? Well, not even the world, even your own perspective. We can clearly see that there are abuses that are taking place. And one of the things that I've noticed is that the people I admire the most, that I have come to admire most, a lot of them are strangers, are people who speak from a place of peace, who have come from those situations, who have come from those war-torn countries, who have come from domestic violence, who've come from near-death experiences, and speak words of peace. The women from Charleston who watched their loved ones get shot to death, the people from these countries who escape and come here to be ambassadors and voices for peace. People like the Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh, who are refugees of their own countries and who watched their country being savagely destroyed, and who watched their people suffer and yet spoke words of peace. I remember the beginning of a book on anger that Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, where it was a little poem that he wrote about putting his hand in his head in his hand after watching the destruction of one of his schools that he built. And one of his monks came and said, "Are you crying?" And he said, "No, I'm holding myself back because I don't want anger to escape." So the idea is that it's not that we don't have those feelings, is we don't let them be who we are. We don't let them define us. And so while you're feeling the anger, you're feeling the anguish, you're feeling a reaction to what's going on either in your life or out there, instead of letting the anger consume you, you use it to transform you so that you can be a sacred servant in some way, somehow. How can we help? How can we be of service to people who are suffering? And I've seen suffering on many different levels. Back in the 80s, I used to do AIDS work. I've talked about this, having AIDS service organizations that we would have to pack up and leave because the neighbors didn't want us in the neighborhood, and they thought we were spreading AIDS and doing things that they thought were immoral. And so we would have to pack up and start up in different places. And it was amazing how people would come together, how communities would come together to try and create something that did not exist, which was services for people who were dying, against the backdrop of prejudice and misinformation and rejection. And in fact, we used to have a saying that if children were treated when they have measles, the way people are treated when they have AIDS, then children would be dying of measles.
It would. Yeah.
Because it's the intensity of the energy that is being put out and how people suffer as a result. And I remember one of my clients giving a talk. He was a very young man, 35 years old, and he said, "Last year, I made plans for my life. I made plans for my retirement." He said, "Now I'm watching my health decline, so I'm making plans for my year. And if I get sicker, then I'll just make plans for my week. And at some point, I'll just make plans for my day." And I thought how powerfully strong this person is in the core of his being to face death with such nobility, in a way, to be able to go and give that message to other people, to just be where you are, how you are, enjoy your life in this moment. And then to hear those same words from survivors of Auschwitz, people who are elderly now, who are no longer imprisoned by the memories of their experience, but who come to workshops and build communities around making sure that sort of thing never happens again, but at the same time, not being stuck in the quagmire of anger. And the more we lean in the direction of our upset for what we see, the less we become able to be helpers to release those who are suffering from what we see. And so, we just do the best we can in every circumstances. And as we watch what is happening, and we start finding ourselves get upset, then we have to evaluate, what am I going to do with this upset? Will I now become a hater of that culture, of those people? Well, that's not going to help things change.
Not at all.
We can't be a servant of anything good if we get caught up, because that's the hook. Pema Chodron has this great book that says, "Don't bite the hook." And I thought that says it all. You don't even have to read it. It says it all, right? There's a hook that gets thrown out. And whether it's in a conversation, whether it's in an argument, or whether it's in watching the news of war, or watching clips of people being hurt, that's a hook. And if we bite that hook, we become a part of that energy. We become a part of the anger and the upset. And if we just use it to propel us to transformation, like Thich Nhat Hanh said, yes, I'm having anger, but I'm not going to let it define me. I'm going to let it transform me. And we can see a lot of people who say a whole lot of stuff. There's a lot of people who can talk about, how spiritual this, that, or the other thing can be. And even us, we can be talking about how to be spiritual but the truth of the matter is that we are all responsible for what we are doing at any given moment with our minds, with our hearts, and with our behavior. And that's what it's always going to come down to. And this how to attain the peace of God, as that question asks us in that book, it's a reminder that we can attain a holy instant, and then recognize that it was just an instant, but I know what it feels like, and I want to get back to that. And I want to expand it. It's like, it's kind of like a yoga pose. We were doing the warrior pose in one of my classes recently, and then they said deepen the pose, and I found my hip got a little locked because my injury isn't quite, has not allowed me to have full mobility as it once did, and I found myself getting locked in, and immediately got into an upset in my head. And I had like, I don't know how many seconds it was like, oh, the pain, oh, the hip, oh, will it ever get better? Oh, will I never be a warrior? You know? And then I said, oh, wait a minute. I just need to give my body maybe 10, 20 seconds to adjust. And then maybe next week I'll go in deeper. I'll move deeper into that pose. And that's what we do with our spiritual aspirations too. If I'm upset today because I have not been able to attain that perfect peace of God, then I recognize it. I ask to be stretched a little bit further. I want to have that warrior pose, you know, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. I want to be that kind of warrior. And speaking of which, I went to see The Woman King this weekend. It's a movie that, Viola Davis, and I'm sorry I don't remember the name of the young lady who should also get, they should be Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress. But it's the story of women warriors.
Yeah.
And these
I
women
watched a documentary on it, but I didn't see the movie.
Well, they are women warriors during the time of the initiation of the enslavement. And at the time, there were tribal wars, and one tribe fought the other, and whoever won would take people from that tribe and keep them, you know, and they would enslave them, and then they would sell them to the Europeans. This is very early on in this happening. And there was a line in the movie that said, when the Europeans try to put our people in chains, our people would first have to believe that they can be bound. And I thought, how profound is that? Because we ourselves can be bound by our egos, our judgments, our anger, our reactivity. And if we're not going to adjust it, if we're not going to take time to say, you know what, I need to be aware of the fact that this is not adding anything to my life or to humanity. And my job, my task as I rise higher is to change me, is to look at me, to change
I cannot be bound. I cannot be bound unless I allow myself to be bound, not to minimize anybody who's had a chain thrown on them. But I'm talking about as a divine creation, the spiritual being that is connected with these people in chains. Well, listen, what am I bringing to the party?
Even people who were enslaved, were deeply spiritual and refused to let go of that. They transformed the names of their gods and their deities to Christian names just so they could be still in prayer without it causing more trouble, so they could accommodate the situation they were in. I mean, we have learned the most from people who suffered.
Absolutely.
From the endurance of suffering. And so if we're going to be spiritual warriors, then we have to be able to understand that it's not about having an easy breezy life. It's about having,
on the contrary,
it's about having a loving heart, and to do whatever it is that we can to add to humanity and to release ourselves from any inhumanity, because it's not as if we don't have feelings within ourselves that are less than what we want ourselves to be or portray. And I, you know, I'm the first usually to confess, like, you know, I used to have I used to do congregational work once a month, and part of the thing that I would do while I was talking was my confession for that month, you know, because I wanted to be open and true and real about the fact that, you know, these are the parts of me that I'm working on, so that I can be able to do it better, be better, do better, you know? And if we're not willing to look at that, then we're going to bite the hook.
Exactly right.
It's going to be easier for us to get moved into the direction of anger or judgment or condemnation. And, you know, it's a place of self-awareness, of introspection. You know, when we talk about digging deep and unpacking, it's not just the material that we talked about, but it's the material within ourselves.
It's cleaning out all that gook that we're holding inside of us, judgment and all kinds of anger and what happened 25 years ago or what could happen in 50 years, as opposed to where I am right now. What can I do? How can
spiritual rotor-rooter, you know, like really go down in there and clean out the gunk. And, you know, I pray for peace. I pray for the people who are suffering, the women of Iran, I specifically will be talking about that on Thursday. And, to remember that every day we have a goal, and our goal is to represent the voice of kindness and compassion and love, to represent the voice of peace, and to make the corrections, to be honest, rigorously honest within ourselves, to make the corrections where we need to. And so thank you for bringing up this topic and for following up from Thursday. It was a good class. It's always good to be together. And, I just look forward to whatever comes next, because we're open to guidance and direction. And so with that, I thank you. And I would love for you to give us an ending prayer for our time together.
I would love to do that. And I would like to just say to everyone that there are ways to pray through these difficult times, even when we really don't know what to pray for. We can do what's called Tonglen, and I think we've spoken about Tonglen before, where we inhale all the pain of our brothers and sisters throughout the world, just all that pain, hold it in, pull it into our heart, let it just be purified, and send out love to these people. Just send it out. And we can also do a meta prayer where we just pray for the universe, just put out positive love. If it's just saying love, love, love to the universe. There's so many ways to just take a moment or an hour or whatever and just speak. It helps me, I know, and I know it will help everyone to just clean out our own hearts and send out love, send out peace. And that's where we'll find that peace which passes all understanding. So, yes. And so I'm going to end with the last couple of sentences from question 20. It says, the will of God is one and all there is. This is your heritage, the universe beyond the sun and stars, and all the thoughts of which you can conceive belongs to you. God's peace is the condition for his will. Attain his peace, and you remember him. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much. I will put a link to the chapter we discussed, as well as to Tonglen practice. Thank you for reminding us of that. An excellent practice for times like this when we feel helpless, and then we're reminded that in some ways we really are not, even if the least of what we can do on any given day, and it really shouldn't even say the least, but it is of us to be in that mindset of praying for others, and to imagine, even just for a moment, that we can take away their suffering.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
God bless you. Namaste. We'll see you all next Tuesday. God bless.